Yeah, I know what you're thinking. You can get a job in the Middle East simply by trying or by magic, through others, or by a fluke. Remember that competition is everywhere. Some here, some there, but bam! Machedo is the best.
All right, I want to give you my thoughts about this UAE and Saudi having problems or tension brewing between them. Now, generally when I read the news from Al Jazeera, people say, oh, Qatar has funded you. Yeah, they're telling me. And then people say that, oh, you're anti-UAE and all that. So I'll put the link with the screenshot. This is taken from Reuters. Okay. Now, please don't tell me now Reuters is funded by Qatar or Reuters is anti-UAE. Okay. So Reuters has reported this news, and I'll read it out, bits and pieces of the news article, and I'll give my thoughts. And you tell me if I'm right or wrong. And also to let you know, there is a Emirati who I spoke to, and I'll give you his thoughts, what he has stated. Okay. So all in all put together, I'll give my views. You let me know, Wendy. You let me know if what I'm saying is right or wrong. Okay. So let's start. This one is taken from 6th July 2021. This is a OPEC disagreement between UAE and Saudi. Okay. Now this Emirati guy gave me the name of an oil field. I'll paste it on the screen. I don't know if I got the pronunciation correct or whatever, but he gave me the name of an oil field, and he said this oil field was a major bone of contention between Saudi and UAE. Okay. The UAE's opposition this weekend to propose an 8-month extension to output curbs favored by Saudi, which was a rare display of defiance by Abu Dhabi, whose crown prince MBZ has been a staunch ally of Saudi Crown Prince MBS. The disagreement led OPEC plus talks to be called off on Monday. The current OPEC standoff signals a wider push by UAE to assert its economic and national self-interest vis-à-vis Saudi Arabia, said Amir Khan, senior economist at Saudi National Bank. Now, I'll tell you one of the reasons why I believe this rift is taking place. Okay. Now, if you actually look at it, Saudi, just look at what happened lately. UAE made friendship with Israel. Now, UAE extending a hand of friendship to Israel, what does it do to Saudi? It puts Saudi in a very precarious position, because Saudi is a home to, the Kaaba, Muslims and Arabs. Now, they have to support Palestinians because they are Muslim brothers. Now, if they extend their hand of friendship to Israel, what message are you giving to Palestinians? What message are you giving to other Muslim, countries which are near? If you actually look at the history, all the Arab Muslims, they are against Israel. And I'm not trying to say Arabs are bad and Jews are good, and there's nothing like that. It's a game of politics. And I find this bullshit when they say anti-Semitism and this and that. Shut the fuck up. When people criticize Islam and someone says anti-Islamic or anti-Muslim, then these guys don't have a problem with that. Like France. France is okay criticizing Muslims, freedom of speech. But the minute you criticize Israel, all of a sudden it's anti-Semitism. Like, where's freedom of speech? It should work both the ways, right? I don't understand this double standard which is there with America and France and Europe. You criticize Jews, It's anti-Semitism, which is as if it's a big thing. And then if someone says anti-Islam or anti-Muslim, they bring in their trump card, freedom of speech. Freedom of speech should be equal to everyone, no? So I can never understand this. So anyway, coming to UAE and Saudi. So UAE made peace with Israel, recognized Israel, and now that leaves UAE and Saudi's relationship very precarious. Now if you actually look at it, before UAE and Saudi were friends, Qatar was the bad guy. Now UAE and Israel are friends. Qatar is not friends with Israel. Saudi is not friends with Israel. So, you know, like they say, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. See, one more thing I'll tell you about Arab Muslims, okay? And this is not to hate on them or anything. One thing which I've known about Arab Muslims, for them what is important the most is their religion, their culture, their tradition, their values. They hold them very highly, huh? Like for example, their Prophet Muhammad, Islam, the teachings of Islam. Okay, interpretation might vary, but this is important to them. And this religion proves to be a very powerful motivator for them to have fights like Shia and Sunni. Okay. Now, you know, with what is happening, see, UAE and Saudi went to war. Some people are saying it's UAE that initiated the process of the war with Yemen so that they could get a benefit out of it. And Saudi obviously is bigger and much more powerful. So they went together. Now what has happened is they were fighting together because the interests were one. But now the interests are no longer one. See, I'll give you a simple example. When they didn't have common interests with Qatar, see how they boycotted Qatar. But when Saudi was hemorrhaging with the recession and COVID, when the Qatar Emir came, he hugged him. I mean, kind of reminded me of Judas Iscariot hugging Jesus, man. Bloody hell, it's so fucking fake, man. All this nonsense. That's why I find politics not only horribly shocking, but sometimes disgusting. It's so fake. Simple one. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. They fucking hated each other during the, you know, primaries. I think you call that primaries? Yeah. When they wanted a representative who will represent Democrats. But once they decided, okay, we'll make you vice president, because they wanted to get more votes or more popularity, suddenly Kamala Harris is, Joe Biden is a leader. Wow, he is our champion. You know, it's like vomit. So disgusting. Okay, anyway. The alliance between young ambitious prince has propelled a hawkish foreign policy that saw launch of military campaign in Yemen, led to an Arab boycott of Qatar, and combat of Islamic political groups in the Middle East and beyond. As Saudi Arabia tries to wean itself an economy of oil, it's vying with the UAE for foreign capital and talent. Although economists say this will take time to truly challenge the region's business, trade and tourism hub. Now this is also a very big point. Qatar started, Saudi started its main drive to get out of oil with the Saudi 2030 vision. Okay. UAE announced what is that? This Expo 2020. So Saudi came 2030. UAE said, okay, we are going to get millions, example, 25 million visitors and 100 billion investment. I'm going to give you rough figures. Saudi said, okay, you're saying 25 million visitors, we'll get 80 million visitors. You're saying 100 billion investment, we are talking 2 trillion investment. And Saudi always tried to show like, I'm your big brother, I'm better than you. And then obviously the Saudi Aramco fiasco that took place. So whatever UAE tried to do, Saudi tried to one up the game. That's why even the Burj Khalifa, they tried to come out with the Saudi, the tallest, whatever. It's going to be bigger than Burj Khalifa, but it failed. Now, Saudi tried its best to give a new outlook, trying to make it modern, trying to bring all these American rap artists, song artists, even World Wrestling Federation to wrestle there, and they try to bring this modern outlook. They brought in bloggers and vloggers and Instagrammers and all these people to sing and dance, and oh, Saudi is so different, we are misunderstanding Muslims, and okay. And MBZ literally went every country marketing and pitching, which he has to do. But then Khashoggi's, that incident took place, and that fucked up everything. Okay. So now Mohammed bin Salman is really trying his best to make, Saudi a regional hub. And you will not believe me if I tell you this. I've actually provided services to a lot of Saudi nationals, and they're not this typical, like when you think of Arab, you're like, oh, Fadal, how are you? And these guys, these Saudi nationals who I provided my service, their grasp of the English language, the accent was as if I was speaking to a American or speaking to a, European. Their accent was so westernized, and they were with a suit and tie, and they were talking to me, and so it's not that every Saudi is like a mutawwa with a big beard and father Allah Kali, and no. There are educated people also, and these people who I did provide a service to, man, they had impressive credentials. I was like, whoa, you have a PhD and all that. Many of them who are occupying big government positions, most of them are PhDs. Now obviously you'll say, then why is Khashoggi, why is MBS doing things? See, politics is different from the potential that is there with the individuals, okay? So you can't mix both. Like in India, you might see BJP and Narendra Modi. That doesn't mean everyone is worshipping cows and is wearing a tika and all that. There are people who are educated for IIT, IIMs, Harvard, Yale. Yeah, so let's not brush everyone with the same color. So the point I'm trying to make here is, the Saudi nationals are as competent as the UAE Emirati. And I have been in touch with the UAE Emirati, I've been in touch with Saudi locals. Some of them you will not even believe that they are like Saudi locals or UAE Emirati. They very modern, huh? Okay, now, so they are competing now to get away from oil and become a business hub, which I will come to more about later here. There's a creeping economic competition between the relationship of the two biggest Arab economies, and the competition is to intensify, said Emirati political analyst Abdul Khalik Abdullah. The UAE is speaking its mind, but the relationship is strong and the leadership know how to resolve issues. See, in other words, that means there is an issue, which is not good. The UAE Foreign Ministry said the Saudi government communications did not respond to Reuters' request on their economic and political relations. While common perceived threats from Iran and Islamic group in the region are likely to keep a lid on the political differences, analysts say the two states are seen as likely to be increasing butting heads on matters of economic sovereignty. Because at the end of the day, money talks, man. Riyadh has warned foreign firms. Now this one is important, okay? Riyadh has warned foreign firms they could lose out on state contracts if they do not set up regional headquarters in the kingdom by 2024, in another challenge to UAE's status as a regional business hub. It this week amends rules to imports from Gulf states to exclude goods made in free zone. Now these are two different very big topics. When Saudi announced that if you don't set up a regional hub here in Saudi, you set it up in some free zone in UAE, okay? Don't think we are going to give you regional, and those regional contracts are lucrative. Okay, and then they can penalize by saying, no, we'll not give you this, we'll not give you that, and they'll just make your life miserable. So now companies don't have a choice. The only solution is, okay, when I operate for contracts in UAE, I'll use my UAE office, UAE regional hub. When I want contracts in Saudi, I will, communicate from the Saudi hub. But now the major change that's going to happen, UAE will no longer be a monopoly. UAE no longer will be like the business hub of the Middle East. Now you'll have two business hubs. You will have two options. So there's no numero uno. Those days of UAE being called as a business hub will soon evaporate, because now companies will have an option and choice. And when there is competition, people will always get better rates. Several diplomats in the region have said UAE-Saudi alliance has gone as far as national economic interest can take precedence, especially in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic. And that is true, because now COVID has ruined the economies. It's survival of the fittest. The first indication of parting ways came in 2019 when UAE withdrew its military presence from Yemen, leaving Riyadh mired in a costly war that threatens its security. Now this was more like betrayal, Abu Dhabi still maintains sway via Yemeni forces, some who have challenged Yemeni Saudi-backed government. And I think the second big one was Israel. Signing up with Israel, and Saudi felt like, what the fuck, You sign up with Israel because you want to, snuggle up to USA. And now USA has betrayed us because it withdrew all its troops. Because now we are not going to have oil. So USA is also playing the political game. Before they were buddies with Saudi. You remember how Donald Trump went to Saudi? Okay, then. The UAE has also dragged its feet on a deal announced by Saudi Arabia in January to restore political ties with Qatar, as Riyadh seems to ease friction with US. President Joe Biden said over its human rights record in Yemen. While the UAE last year forged ties with Israel in a move that enjoyed bipartisan support in Washington, Riyadh, by contrast, has made tentative moves to prove its relationship with Turkey. And Turkey and UAE they just don't like each other very much. But the UAE and Saudi remain bound by concern over Iran's expanding influence via regional proxies and security threats that pose a risk to economic ambitions. Now here's another funny thing. UAE's relationship with Iran goes a very long way. Very long way. This is, you're talking 1940s, 50s, 60s. The trade route between Iran and UAE. Now, only after this Shia Sunni, all this, and this political game started with US being friends with Saudi and all that, yes, they slowly, showed Iran the back door. So now, see, the overall gist of this whole article is that now UAE and Saudi, where OPEC is concerned, now they have different interests. Question is, who is going to make the sacrifice more? See, when you negotiate a deal, always keep this in mind. The best deal is where none of the parties are happy. Okay? Because if one party is happy, the other party is not happy. So both the parties will be unhappy. The second thing is, once this deal has been made, where both parties are unhappy, the tension has already started. And I'll tell you, when there is a crack in a glass, the crack only gets bigger and bigger. It doesn't heal itself.